Spoiler alert for Steven Universe, or seasons 1 through 5, as well as future and the movie. So if you haven't seen it, either go see it, or just don't complain to me about the spoilers that are going to be featured in this video. Yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video. Hello guys, and today I will be reviewing Steven Universe. Did it hold up to when I first watched it? Let's see if that's the case, and we'll discuss Season 1. So first season goes into character development, at least for Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl. And fun fact, the voice actor of Amethyst also voices a character in the Owl House, but that's for another video. Anyways, Steven Universe's first season also takes us through a lot of gem locations. Eventually, we get to see the first glimpse of Homeworld via The Return and Jailbreak, where Jasper and Peridot come to Earth, capture the gems, and then proceed to take them to Homeworld, where they did not account for Steven being a hybrid. So Steven ends up breaking them out and ends up meeting Ruby and Sapphire in the process, and then takes down the ship, resulting in Peridot escaping and Lapis and Jasper getting taken to the bottom of the ocean. Season 2 starts off with the worst episode of Steven Universe and the worst crossover episode ever. Though at the time I didn't think that was the case, but now looking back on it, it's pretty much the case. Which is, say, Uncle, which is you could totally skip it if you're watching the series and all. Eventually, there's more character development for Connie and Peridot, and we even get some flashbacks and stories about the Gem War, and Greg's relationship and all. Season 3 starts with Steven's birthday. Before going into it, it could have been great, where the Gems take a trip to the moon base, where Peridot sneaks a communicator and eventually calls Yellow Diamond a Claude. Steven Universe also ends up possessing a watermelon Steven and the fusion Malachite, being the fusion we talked about of Lapis and Jasper before. Fights Alexandrite, being a fusion of Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl. Steven bubbles the cluster, and eventually Steven meets his uncle Andy, and eventually Steven gets marooned in the bubble. And the crystal gems steal a Homeworld ship. Jasper gets corrupted, and eventually Steven meets his uncle Andy. And then eventually Greg gets captured by Blue Diamond. The gems go rescue him using a stolen Homeworld ship. And more development for Amethyst, Lapis, Peridot. Eventually, Steven uses his room to see his mom, which did not work out well. And eventually, people started to get captured by Topaz and Aquamarine. And funny fact about this is that I had a gemstone named Aquamarine before this episode aired and all. Anyways, yeah. Now for my favorite season of Steven Universe, Season 5. Where Steven goes on trial, meets the off-colors. Lars dies and gets revived by Steven, who realizes he can come home via the wormhole in Lars' head and Lion's mane. And eventually comes home, where a lot of drama between him and Connie occur. Eventually it's discovered that Lars hijacked a ship, Rose's Pink Diamond, and when that happens, Ruby and Sapphire defuse, and eventually Ruby proposes to Sapphire and has a wedding where they bubble bismuth because earlier she was unbubbled for a brief period of time earlier, but then she turned against Steven. And let's see here. And of course they unbubbled her again. And eventually he gets into the wedding gets into a point where like it eventually Yellow and Blue, the Crystal Gems getting into a fight with Yellow and Blue Diamond before Steven tells him the truth about Rose and Pink. Then Steven goes to Homeworld and tries to talk to White Diamond before getting sent to Pink's room. Then Steven has a ball and then fuses with Connie before Garnet Opal and Jade Fusion appears, and suddenly Yellow Diamond zaps them all. Stevani gets thrown into a prison, and eventually Steven gets helped and eventually confronts Blue Diamond and then Yellow Diamond before confronting White Diamond, who mind controls Yellow and Blue, and then Steven gets the gems to form by fusing with them in the forms of Smoky Quartz, Rainbow Quartz, and Sunstone. That they then form Obsidian and proceed to climb White Diamond's ship before going in, and White Diamond mind controls in almost all the crystal gems and restrains Connie before White Diamond takes out Steven's gem, which then forms into Pink Steven and proceeds to fuse back into Steven, and Steven tells White Diamond, "I am a child," and gets her to help uncorrupt the corrupted gems via a fountain, and then of course a reprise of the Crystal Gems, We Are the Crystal Gems song is played, and yeah, that's how it ends off. At least for this season, there is still more to go. So the Steven Universe movie starts off with Steven and the Crystal Gems celebrating their victory and happily ever after and all, before Benel comes in and uses a rejuvenator to wipe the gem's memories. Is planning on using the injector to kill everything on Earth. And eventually, Steven wipes out Spinel's memory with the rejuvenator, as well as, and then pretty much Steven then gets the gem's memories back, including Spinel's, and gets her to turn off the injector, at least initially, before Spinel then proceeds to I get angry realizing that Steven kind of used her, and they fight, and then of course, this movie had some good songs and all, and yeah, you probably should see it too. We get into Steven Universe Future, the epilogue series, where pretty much first everything starts off where at least fairly normal shenanigans before eventually Steven starts to realize he's been traumatized and all, pretty much, and yeah, and eventually he goes to the doctor for the first time, and eventually he gets corrupted, it becomes a kaiju-sized gem monster. And of course, Gems M's are crying about it at first, but then Steven, then Connie then decides to get the crystal gems to I can give Steven some love, and there is the conclusion. And then Steven decides to move out and get therapy, and there's a conclusion of the series. Be sure to like and subscribe. I don't know why.